Oh, and we're doing it.
Are we live?
We're live right now.
We're live. How annoying is that going to be for everybody that I'm going to keep wanting to look down at this screen and not here? That's going to be fun for everybody.
I'm going to adjust it. So, hey, guys, by the way, if it looks different, if you're like, man, they seem like they changed their set yet again. Well, we didn't exactly. We are
in Santa Barbara, California.
We are. Because it was my birthday.
Happy birthday.
So we figured let's drag all of our stuff.
Well, you actually didn't figure that at all. This was a surprise.
Yeah,
and so
that's true.
You were like, well, when are we going? And I was like, Saturday and Sunday.
Yep.
So pack everything up because we're live streaming from a hotel, which I'll say, I feel like our road episodes, some of our best work.
Yeah. Doing this, we're out on the road, you know. Normally we're on the road because we're doing stand-up or something. Or not normal.
Yeah, I was like, normally, you mean 2 years ago? It's almost been a year.
Yep.
That's a pretty big deal.
Well,
should we do like a pandemic recap next
but hold
week?
on. We didn't even say who we are and what we're doing.
I feel like everybody's picked it up.
But I'm Alex Gettlin.
I'm Rachel LaForce.
We're married. We do this podcast every week, and here we are doing it again.
This is us. This podcast is all about finding common ground. Right now, people love to say we are a country divided.
Yep.
Also, millions of people in our country. Okay? Your search for unity, terrible mission. You know what I mean? Going to be difficult. So that's what we do. Normally, we talk about things that tend...
Current events, politics, some pop culture stuff.
Tend to rile me up. And then I just philosophize for 20 minutes until Alex cuts me off. And our viewers laugh at me in the comments section.
Yeah, so you and my lovely parents surprised us with a hotel room in Santa Barbara. Because we're like, listen, everything's closed, but why can't we just get away from LA for a bit and just hang out at the Courtyard Marriott?
Well, yeah, and like
Santa Barbara.
I wanted us to, like, I was like, oh, we could go like exploring in Big Bear or this or that. But it was like, I'm still so tired that even like planning this was a feat, you know, where I was like, what, I'm going to pack up all the camping gear when he doesn't know. And like, camp, I can't even sleep on my back. You know what I mean? I'm like a pregnant woman camping. I mean, it happens, but it's not going to happen for me.
That's what our ancestors did for most of time. They just, slept in the dirt while pregnant. They figured it out.
They did. And you know what? I have gratitude for them, but I'm also grateful for HBO and air conditioning. Yeah, so
that's fair. That's fair.
Don't at me.
So listen, yes, we're at this hotel. We have cable here, which we never really watch because we don't care about that stuff, but
except when we're in hotels.
Yeah, but
like where I'm always like, can you just log into the Netflix? You're like, why? There's so much to watch. I'm like, this is awful, and then you fall asleep.
No, that's not what I said. I couldn't.
I know this time, but before you've been like, well, let's.
Okay, but we did figure. Hey, listen, we're a show that covers a variety of topics. Why don't we watch the Golden Globes, see what their take? We're not like an award show recap type show, but we figured, hey man, Golden Globes are going. They were like semi-virtual this year. Let's watch it, and it's like the second big event we've kind of, I guess actually the third, because the first one was Times Square ball drop, which was that was the saddest.
I would say that's when I knew that we were in a simulation. You know what I mean? Watching that was the like I was like, did everyone quit? Like it looked as though everybody that was like a part of the production suddenly was like, you know what? I'm done. Have your own New Year's. I'm out.
So then, which Planet Fitness was sponsoring that one. That was kind of funny to see all these people in like these Dr. Seuss Planet Fitness purple and yellow hats. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And then Super Bowl, we watched that, which was still weird, but they did like the cardboard cutout people in the stands and stuff. And then we made it to Golden Globes virtual. So now this is like a series that we like watch all these events.
No, I hope it won't be. I hope people who feel comfortable getting vaccinated will vaccinate. Folks who don't will understand that it's a personal choice and they don't have to berate everybody else who decides that they would like to be vaccinated. Personal choice, and I think that's fair. But also, have a seat.
I'll say this. The show, the actual Golden Globes, was fine. I don't really care about award shows. You don't either, really. Because we work in Hollywood, but it's so much like self-congratulatory.
I don't know. I'm not the person who's like, come on over. We're all making ballots. I'm not. I have other hobbies, You
had friends who would do like ballots for...
Not personal friends, but I know... listen, I went to theater school and then I've worked in entertainment. Of course, I know the people that have, it's
Well,
like
the first-
fantasy football.
The first time I like realized like, oh yeah, there's like there's a different kind of person out in LA to some extent. Just because like
There's only one different kind of person.
well no, like I remember like when I moved out here and then some friend of mine was like, yeah, like mentioned she was having an Oscars party.
Okay.
And it wasn't like saying like, oh, by the way, I'm gonna like have friends over to like, oh, we're all gonna watch the Oscars, sort of like setting it up like this is a thing we do that you might not realize is like a thing people do. Saying it the same way, like, yeah, we're having like a dinner party. Like it was just funny to me that it was such like a cultural event to certain folks, and it was such a thing that like I could not care any less about, like a party to watch the Oscars.
Yeah, but there's parties all the time for things I don't care about.
I mean, I remember in high school there were Glee parties. Do you remember those?
Nope. No, I don't.
I didn't go to any.
Well, Game of Thrones was big. I used to go there in one of my previous lives, a gentleman that I was dating, and his friends, like every Sunday, they would do like a big Game of Thrones thing, which was fun to come in at like season 4 and pretend to a group of people that I wanted to like me, that I cared. You know what I mean? That was fun every Sunday.
Yeah, I had some, when I was in, I know you're going to have a reaction to this. When I was in college, we would do entourage parties. So me and all the guys in my fraternity.
Yep. That's a fact. That's real.
Would get around and watch Entourage.
Woo! Let's check that marriage license, baby.
But anyway, we'll move on from this in a second. But I will say
who do you identify in the entourage? Who are you?
Well, everybody wants to be Vince, obviously.
Why? He's so boring.
But he is
by far and away the weakest choice.
Well, I didn't identify with any of them. I guess the closest I would be is probably E.
You're like a mix of E and Turtle.
I don't think. Well, why do you say that about Turtle? Because Turtle was always kind of a loser.
Turtle was my favorite.
But okay, maybe you thought he was like cute or something. But I mean, like his character didn't achieve any success. He didn't like do anything cool.
Okay, well, first of all, you're not going to be held to this. Okay, so it's okay. No, but I feel like, but you're also not, because you're not as like laid back as E. But you have the business mind of him.
He was laid back. I think Turtle was laid back.
Guys, this is now an Entourage podcast. You've heard it here first.
I will say, in college, I thought Ari Gold was so cool, and now having like been in the work world for a bit and in entertainment, like, dude, fuck that guy. And also Jeremy Piven. Nah, that's not fair. I don't know Jeremy Piven. I've just heard bad things.
Oh yeah.
I don't know him, so I shouldn't say it. So I just want to put a pin on this, or put a bow on this Golden Globe segment really quick. We'll move on. But I will say the award show was fine. I mean, it did seem a little silly that like the presenters were there, but the recipients weren't. Like the recipients were all virtual. But I
was okay with it. I was okay with it. And I actually thought Tina and Amy did a pretty good job. I'm still confused why they had to do it bi-coastally. Seemed a little silly.
Yeah, I think they were just trying to highlight, like, we're all distancing from everything. And
I guess it didn't play. They could have done it in one place,
but
I think. But I thought that they did a good job, and I thought, I mean, Maya Rudolph to me can do no wrong, but the bit of her and Keenan, very confused bit, but fun. And overall, like I thought, you know what I mean? I mean, even when it's like a huge, large production, I don't ever leave going, wow, that was a show, Like you're still always kind of like, all right.
I really liked that, like, half of the funniest part was that half of the recipients, like, all zooming in or whatever they'd set up, were in, like, these gowns and tuxedos and, like, so elegant. And the other half went full, like, sweatpants. Like, Jason Sudeikis had on, like, an orange hoodie.
Yeah, but he was baked. Dude, yeah. He looked like he'd been, like, I want to be like, somebody call Sudeikis now. He's been on a bender.
The only thing that I thought was like, why would they do this, was that virtual red carpet. That was sad. That was actually like a sad event
So Jane Lynch, if you watch this, if not, go to YouTube and just find a snippet of it. I was like, either she didn't know she was doing this, or there's a gun behind the camera, because she was like, isn't this fun? Right now, Tina is in New York. Amy is, because they had to recap it every time they came back. So she's just saying the same thing. And she looked so stiff and just like, why are we doing this?
Yeah. Well,
And but of course she did, because everybody else at home was going, why are we doing this?
Yeah, it was, it was sad. So the next one, I guess, is Grammys, Oscars. The Grammys to me has always been the least significant. I mean, first of all these award shows to me are silly. But like the Golden Globes and the Oscars have a little bit more like weight, I think. Like to me, it does imply that there's some kind of weight to that award, like to the general public.
You don't think there's a weight to a Grammy?
Not that
That makes musical legends.
yeah, but I just feel like the general like in my lifetime, I've seen like the critics' decisions of who gets these awards kind of slowly separate from the public. Like when I was a kid, like Braveheart won an Oscar. Like that was like, I believe, I'd have to double check that. I think Gladiator won one. These films that like people went and saw them. Like they were popular films. Now the stuff that wins, they make like $30. Like nobody
That's
sees
also
these
because
movies.
we make too many movies, and now there's too many places to see them.
Right, but what I'm saying though is
You probably could show me trailers for fake movies. Wouldn't even know.
But what I'm saying is at least like it probably isn't as much now, but it used to be at least like, oh, if it won an Oscar, that might determine if I'm going to make the investment to watch this film. Whereas a Grammy, it's like that to me as like a general like consumer of media.
Sure.
Why are you making that face? At me?
I didn't know you had such a torch.
Well, like if I saw that a show or a movie won an Oscar or a Golden Globe, it piques my interest a bit. I'm like, okay, I'm a little bit more interested. A Grammy literally has zero weight to me because it's so like I'll just go like it doesn't. The people who pick the Grammys, their opinion is so irrelevant to what I think the general public cares about musically.
Well, can't you say the same thing for the Hollywood foreign press?
Sure, I think it's even. But if I had to rank them, the Grammys is even lower
Okay.
than the Golden Globes. That's all.
All right. Don't invite this guy to the Grammys, okay? I will still go. I am happy to present. I'll even host the Grammys.
I would want to go to like one of the, when I was doing like catering gigs and stuff, I bartended the Spike TV Guys Choice Awards, and that was like the dumbest because they had a what they did was they had like on stage a bunch of soldiers.
Oh, I thought you were going to say strippers.
No, they had a bunch of, I don't remember what their specific significance was beyond being soldiers, but there was like some reason that these guys were all on stage. They were like
Actual soldiers.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they were men. I don't know if there were any women in this group. I think it was all men that were there.
Sure, women aren't soldiers.
They can be, but I'm saying for this particular
I don't know. Can they?
they had all these guys on stage just to kind of like they were the special guests. They were honoring them, etc.
That's nice.
Yeah, it was part of the theme, Spike TV, Guys Choice, etc. And then they had
Definitely no women. Okay.
a bar for the soldiers on stage because they wanted to. I don't know why, but they had it was all part of the big set. Why are you making these faces?
Because I'm just imagining this just
like 22.
testosterone-filled room.
I was like 22. But the funny thing is, so when you do an event like this, you're just like you're a caterer. You don't really know what you're doing until you get there. You're just like a hired hand for the day.
Sure.
And then one of the people in charge was like, who is not SAG? I need someone who's not SAG. If you don't know, that means you're not in the Actors Union. And I'm not.
It's the Screen Actors Guild.
So they needed someone who is not SAG to be on stage as the onstage bartender. For some reason,
And it was you.
it was me. So I was the only bartender up there with all these soldiers. And the funny thing is, because I had worked a lot of these events, celebrities never tip. I don't know if it's because they're cheap or they just don't carry cash on themselves or they get everything for free so they don't think about it. But these soldiers were like throwing money at me. Like I could not put it in my pockets fast enough. They were just like they were so excited to be there and to have an open bar that they just like kept like they would not stop giving me money. It was awesome.
I'm honestly surprised I've never heard that story.
Yeah, I got a few that you never heard.
I know, but that's what normally you'll go to tell me the same story and I'm like, do I let him finish or do I tell him that I know every single part of the story?
But that was the coolest because I've worked at all the other award shows. I actually have never worked the Grammys, but I've worked the Emmys.
That's why you don't like them.
I've worked the Golden Globes. Yeah, right. I've worked the Oscars. They're all just like, okay. They're cool from the outset, but I also realized when working there, a lot of these like quote unquote stars or whoever, they don't even want to be there. If you think you're going to win, you're probably excited. If you know you're not going to win, if it's very unlikely that you'll win, it's like a chore. You'd have to be there and like, okay, we're proud of you, great. And then just.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know. There's so much politics that are involved when it comes to that whole part of Hollywood.
Yeah.
That I mean, I think if they could have done it in person this year, even if it was like every other seat or whatever, I think people would have really loved it because folks are like just so starved to, especially I think people, well, I don't even won't say people in Hollywood. I think people everywhere, no matter what your community is, whether it's, nursing, healthcare, politics, whatever it is, I think everybody's just like, get me in a room with other people.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm still holding out hope that I'm gonna host the Oscars someday.
As Tracy.
No, I think that'd be too much. She could make an appearance, but I think what I would do with Tracy is those very simple, because you know what? We've seen them a million times, but do they ever get old? No, they don't. As when you talk to little kids and ask them questions, like when they did the Black Panther segment. Yeah. Oh, heartbreak. Yeah. So cute. But those segments never get old. People love hearing the things that little kids have to say.
That's what we should do with Tracy. That's why I was talking about Tracy teaches kids stuff. And then, So, okay. So let's move on from the Oscars because I had one other thing I wanted to present to you.
Okay. Well, then let's move on.
The Golden Globes, I mean. Did you have anything else you wanted to say?
I guess not.
Well, you can.
Well, no, I would be remiss.
Okay. So this is when you see something in the news or like some headline and you're like, I know what they're trying to do here. I don't think it's going to work out the way...
Oh, you mean just reading the news?
Yeah. Okay. So, Derek Chauvin, do you remember who this person is?
No.
He was the police officer that kneeled on George Floyd's neck?
Yes.
Okay, so read this headline from Vice.
Minneapolis will pay influencers... Wait.
Read it.
Wait. Oh, my brain just exploded from anger. Minneapolis will pay influencers to, in parentheses, de-escalate tension during Derek Chauvin trial. City officials voted to pay social media influencers $2,000 to spread the city's messaging during the trial of the officer who killed George Floyd. Here's where you should spend your money doing revamping your police system. Okay, fuck off. This is offensive. It's gross. This is not saying. I mean, listen. I understand that the very real scenario exists where people riot, right? Now, I just want to remind everybody why that scenario very much could exist, right? Because many, many moons ago, you guys did not immediately charge a police officer who in broad daylight killed a man.
Well, it wasn't just that. So do you remember who Amy Klobuchar was?
No.
Or is, but she was running for president on the Democratic ticket. She was becoming one of the really popular.
Yes.
And I don't remember what her role was in Minnesota, but she was some kind of high-ranking government official, maybe the governor or somebody very powerful in the Minnesota government who, under her authority, Derek Chauvin didn't get reprimanded the way he should have because the power of the police union, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But okay. So I saw this and I was like, wait a minute, a few thoughts. First of all, $2,000 across 6 influencers. It's only like $12,000. That's not that much money. And if you read more farther in the article, they're dedicating over $1 million to communication efforts around the trial. I don't know what that means exactly. They didn't break down exactly. But
that means they're trying to control the narrative. That's what that means.
What's weird is like I don't understand. They didn't say who these like influencers are, but like what? So they are live streaming this trial, so people can all watch it together. Which shouldn't all trials be live streamed? Like we as the public, the taxpayer, we should be maybe certain like family court things, but like I think most all trials should be just open to the public to watch, right?
I think so. I don't actually know enough about the legality, what that opens up, etc. So I don't not share an opinion because I hold a very strong one. I simply don't know enough about it, to be honest. My instinct is, yes, it should be public knowledge because the problem then becomes, right, like, which we've seen this, like OJ was especially one of them, like when we have these mega trials where the jury, even though they're not supposed to be influenced by like what's going on, you're basically just printing whatever you want about the story. Yeah. And then people are, of course, much more influenced by emotion than whatever happens in the courtroom. So I think especially this time we need complete transparency. I think we need more transparency, specifically when it comes to issues with our government, issues with our police, and specifically right now, issues that involve race and the police. I mean, I just think if the overall sentiment is we genuinely want to change and do something different, which I don't actually believe that's the case. I do believe in good policing. I do believe in good police officers. I do believe in good folks that are out there that are wanting to help these communities. But I also know after what we've seen over the last year, ultimately police unions harbor an insane amount of power and have no interest in doing anything different. This $12,000 bullshit, like, help us de-escalate. No, you know what have helped de-escalate is immediately being like, this is completely unacceptable. Yeah. This is not policing. This is violence. This is murder. We have zero tolerance for it. Thank you so much. You've lost your job. You've lost your pension, and we will see you in court.
Yeah, well, the unfortunate thing is
it's a very, no pun intended, black and white. There's no gray area for me.
Well, okay, so there's a couple things at hand here. So one, I'll get to the police union thing in a second. But okay. So what's probably going to happen, so they charged this officer, last time I checked, I believe they charged him with second-degree murder, which is very difficult to prove in court. Second-degree murder, first degree is like you premeditated it.
Right.
Second degree is you got so angry in the moment you intentionally killed the person. Third degree is like it was a complete accident.
Right.
Okay.
He'll probably walk with manslaughter if they actually even hold him accountable.
Well, that's the concern, I think, is that I think it would be very having no legal expertise here, and just like kind of using your kind of brain for a second. I'm not defending this guy at all. I think he's a terrible person. I don't think he intended to kill George Floyd because it just wouldn't make sense. Like, why would he? I'm like not talking about his like ethics or anything. Just doesn't quite make sense that he would like, while he knows he's being filmed, like kill this guy slowly on camera. So I think there's like a lot of stuff about
potentially. There's also the idea that when, and this happens with women as well, or people non-binary. Specifically, though, we have many, many, many examples of men who feel so untouchable.
That's true. Yeah.
That they actually think. And now, do I think that he's like, I'm going to murder this guy? To your point, maybe not. But he certainly knew what he was doing for that period of time. He also knew that he was on film.
Right. Well, I'm just saying, like, when it comes to stuff in the courts, all the defense has to do is make it where it's not beyond a reasonable doubt.
Sure.
Like this, same with George Floyd. Listen, there's no doubt that officer did horrible things to him, and probably his knee on his neck ended up killing him. But the fact is, at the same time, George Floyd had an insane amount of drugs in his body. And it's only relevant in the sense that the defense, again, could try and make it confusing where it's hard to prove it in court, and then the guy walks or gets like some bullshit charge, which then I think the city is preparing for this. I don't know what their idiotic thing. We're going to pay 6 influencers to promote.
Well, it also just shows me how out of touch they are with what's really happening. Yeah. That they have no intention of revamping and really this idea of protect and serve. And that's why at this point, like when, people are like of a different point of view than me, where I get angry is I'm like, it's fine if you genuinely fine, meaning like you're welcome to your opinion, right? If you're like, I think everybody's coming after police officers. I've got, Blue Lives Matter, like, black people are making a big deal and they're all rioters. My only thing, and then again, where I say is you're welcome to your opinion, but again, I feel like you're dumb. Stay with me, is because then you're ignoring years and years, specifically, like, I don't even have to go back to being like, black people have been enslaved for 200 years. Like, right. I can literally go, let's look at like the past 4 years. Okay. Yeah. So it's simply going, you're choosing to ignore all of it's totally fine if you're angry or you're struggling with your opinion or,
I mean, the city of Minneapolis isn't an impossible place because, and I don't know anything about their government, but I do know that I read one article that like after all this happened, they like gutted their police budget, and there was like a huge uptick in crime, and they like tried to go back and fix it. But the problem they're going to have is what I just said, where this guy's probably it's very unlikely he'll get charged with any, like, unless it was like life in prison. I don't think anybody who's on the for lack of a better definition, anti-cop side, I don't want to use that term, but who's, you know what I'm saying?
I get it, yeah.
Is going to be satisfied. He'll probably get some minimal charge for manslaughter.
Yeah, it's going to be some bullshit. It's going to be a deal.
So then the question is, like, what does the city do? Because my gut was to be like, roll my eyes at this influencer thing. I still think it's a bad idea. But
oh my God, it's a terrible idea.
Also, who are these influencers?
It's so bad.
Also, $2K is not that much money.
It's there's so many things about it that just, you know.
And it's also like, the other thing too is then because we know they're being paid by the city, it's like, okay, so we know that you're just saying this because the city paid you to say it.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think, you know, the question I want to go back to, I think that you posed, which is really important, which is, so what is this police, how do they revamp and then keep down crime, et cetera, this and that? What I want to remind people, which most folks, again, people who think slightly differently than me or perhaps vastly differently than me, they like things to be standard. They don't want things to change typically, whether that's out of like conditioning or that's where they grew up or it's safety, old narratives, et cetera, right? Which I get. Listen, I don't like change either. You know what I mean? But in order to create new structures, things are going to be messy. And that's also why I go after the government so much, or I remind people of like, if you think it's red team, blue team, baby, you know what I mean? Like all my Biden fans, you know what I mean? Holler if you hear me, you know, like.
Well, hold on. So on that note, real quick. So can I?
Well, wait, before we go to Biden, because, hi, Syria, you know what I mean? So who has time? Is I just want to say where it's like, people in positions of power, and I understand where it's like our government's job is like to, you know, we don't want to like cause alarm. Okay. Also, why don't you empower your people to know that like when you tell them the truth, when you arm them with like what's actually going to happen, you're going to create so much more unity. You're going to create, like, people are going to have opinions no matter what. This is something else I want to talk about. If we get to it today, we might have longer than an hour episode. What I wanted to talk about.
Okay with that? I think you're okay with it.
What I wanted to talk about is this idea of like accountability versus cancel culture or like policing, because it's coming up so much right now, but that's a different piece of it. So let me stay here, which is, in order to create new systems, things are going to be messy. Again, I've said this till I'm blue in the face about COVID. Had they come out when all of this started and said, so right now, we're experiencing a pandemic. Turns out none of us have been alive to experience one. So we're going to do what's called the best we can, okay? Here's what we're going to do.
You think the general public would respond well to that?
Does it matter? They said 2 weeks and everybody lost their minds. That's what I'm saying. That's what people don't understand when they're like, well, you couldn't possibly tell people that we're just mere humans and don't know what we're doing. Why? You tell them what you think you're doing from your ego and your dumb little seats, and guess what? We're a year into this mess, and it's still we're the same place where we started, bro. Where you could have just come out and said, here's what we're gonna do. Okay, we're gonna make a pros and cons list. We're gonna go off of what history's shown us. We're gonna work with other countries, and we're gonna figure this out together. I'm gonna let you know this is gonna be really difficult. I want to let everybody know right now how difficult this is going to be. I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm letting you know we don't know. We are entering into something we never have before, which means we have the opportunity to win. We also have the opportunity we're going to fail a lot. And what we're asking for right now is your grace, because we're telling you the truth. I didn't come up here and say, we've got it, we're going to fix it. It's a disease, it's a virus. We don't know what's going to happen, okay? But here's what we do know. We're actively engaged, and we're going to be giving you the most information. It's going to change. It's going to pivot. Move with us. You know what I mean? And it's like, to say that people can't handle that. You know why they can't handle that? Because we don't tell people the truth. If we slowly adjusted everybody's mentality to know, hey, shocker, we're all human. Here's what we're doing. Our collective knowledge would begin to change, and we would accept or be able to adapt to things that we don't right now.
You know what I think this year has really taught us? Or it's not just this year. It's been bubbling up. But it's like there's really no, and we've always kind of known this, but now it's like out in the open. there's really no such thing anymore as like objective truth or consensus on like what is and is not reality. And, you know, it just is like, I read this interesting thing on Twitter. Some professor, I think, was ranting about. So Substack, which I've told you about, if people don't know, Substack is a kind of an independent journalism platform where people who are, it's not just for journalists, it's for anybody who puts out content, mostly in written form, but that they can do their own like direct to subscriber, anywhere from free to $20 a month, whatever you want to pay, and then you have access to their stuff. So a lot of journalists who I actually happen to be big fans of, people like Glenn Greenwald and Barry Weiss, who are no longer affiliated with big publications they came up with. Barry Weiss left the New York Times for a lot of reasons around political stuff, etc. Glenn Greenwald left The Intercept, which he founded, and so now they have their own platform, and people who want to read their stuff can go directly to them. And this one professor, who I really took issue with what she was trying to say, but whenever I catch myself taking issue with something, I'm like, well, there's probably logic to what they're saying. Let me hear them out. She was arguing that like things like Substack are dangerous because people like these two journalists and countless others built their career on the reputation of these major institutions, and then now are off on their own, and they have the like validity of coming from these New York Times, whatever, but they don't have a team of editors and bosses. It's just them, so they can do whatever they want with no kind of oversight. And that this professor was just trying to argue, well, they have too much power because it's just one person who gets to use, they built their credibility from this New York Times thing, and now they're on their own, and they don't have a team of like editors and you know, other people like vetting them to make sure what they're putting out there is safe. And it's like,
wait, so they don't have a barrage of people above them that are all being told the same lie from the top?
That's the thing. It's like, that's what really like made me roll my eyes.
I want to see what, I'm sorry, really quick. Tucker said, are we broadcasting from a dentistry waiting room today? Hi, Tucker. Thank you for being with us. No, it's actually
like that.
This is from a Marriott in Santa Barbara. Very close. Sorry, I just wanted to check in. Yeah. So then what were your final thoughts from that then?
It just reminded me of like, because I was so excited about this thing called Substack, because I was like, oh, great. When someone like these two journalists or anybody who I'm a fan of has felt that the integrity of their publication or, you know, media outlet they used to be a part of is no longer valid, they want to go off on their own. It's the beauty of the free market. They say, hey, I'm going to do my own thing now. You, Alex, if you are a fan of me, you can spend $5 a month to read my work. And I say, you know what, that is beautiful. I love your work. I would love to spend $5 a month. I also don't like the New York Times, so I'd rather read you directly. And then this person was arguing that, like, to me, I'm like, this is a great answer with the free market solves this problem. And she's trying to argue that, like, this one professor, you know, but she has like 100,000 followers on Twitter.
Yeah, great. And 40 million people follow Kylie Jenner. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't like that doesn't mean anything to me. And the other thing that's interesting is I think again, and you know, so go into my spiritual lens. I think
What was that?
I don't know. I didn't sleep very well. But I'm saying, you know, when I was talking about like the age of Aquarius, and we're all kind of like coming into this like, you know, it's interesting. And so this is where I come back down to planet Earth, because that's where we live, is that it's interesting that we're seeing all of these people split off, that we're hearing people's real truth. Yeah. And so
similarly, Tulsi Gabbard left the Democrats because she said, she actually wrote about this. I got to find the piece. But she basically said that she spent, one of the biggest things why she left is that she felt like it was being back in high school working with Congress, because she would try and do things where she would work with Republicans and people across the aisle. And then a lot of the big shot callers in the Democratic Party, and the Republicans do this too, I'm sure, were basically iced her out because they're like, you can't work with them. If you work with the Republicans, then they'll use it as leverage to beat us at the midterm elections.
Right. It's complete. It's all of it is complete bullshit. But that's exactly why I think it's great that all of these people, that we have all these places now. And, you know, you have to remember too, with all these different apps, you know, Stereo, Clubhouse, all of these things, Substack, you know, where people are like people sending out their weekly newsletters, etc. We're seeing very, very, very slowly, but you're seeing the dissolve of a central power or a central point of view as being like, this is what's good or this is what's true. And, you know, you're right. And this is always difficult for me because I'm like, who am I to challenge somebody else, like what their truth is? Even if to me, I'm like, well, your truth is racist, you know, or like your truth is misogynist, or your truth is, you know.
Even that to a point is subjective.
But that's what I'm saying. You know, I think maybe I should really sit and think about and have a point of view about that. I think for me, it's more of like, I don't have time to go into what is everybody else's truth. My time is spent figuring out exactly what is mine and how can I express it in a way that is a vehicle that hopefully people will hear.
Right.
But I just, all of that was simply just to go back and say that of like, you know, if in the beginning of COVID, people would have, you know, the powers that be would have been honest. Rather, we had, you know, Trump who's like, it's fine, we're going to fix it. It's not a thing. Nobody cares. Like, there's literally the complete opposite of anything that would have been helpful. Yeah. And so now we're all still in this situation. And it's like, I mean, I remember when it happened and they said, oh, we're going to shut down for 2 weeks. And I was like, this is the most hilarious human thing ever. To be like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to slow this global virus by all just staying at home for 2 weeks. And then like everything will be fine. Like it was just most absurd, insane thing. Like to see on the news of every news outlet of the symboling of how scary they made it and all of this stuff. And they're like 2 weeks and then we'll be fine. I'm like, this is insane. It felt like seeing behind the curtain of like
basically a full year now. Yeah,
of our actual reality of being like, how are these people saying like what? And then here we are a year later. So I go back and I'm just applying all of that to, you know, the idea of reestablishing police forms and breaking up police unions and, you know, reestablishing misdemeanors and, you know, decriminalizing drugs and, you know, all of these things that sound really scary, but they only sound scary to certain folks because you have been fed a lie so many times you don't even know it's a lie.
The drug, I think in our lifetime, in the next decade for sure, cannabis will be federally legal. I think a lot of other drugs will be decriminalized. In fact, my home state, Virginia, just voted to legalize cannabis by 2024.
I mean, I think that's phenomenal. And I think, you know, it's like...
Now, when I visit my parents, I can buy weed.
Oh, gosh, did you hear that, Mama and Papa Gettlin? Yeah, I mean, I just think, you know, where it's like we call these people like criminals or we call them drug addicts, but nobody's saying like, why are these people have nothing else to do but like be addicted to drugs? Like it's such a simple point of view, I guess, of being like, well, see, we don't need these people in our society because they're all just using drugs and stealing. And it's like, nobody comes into the world. There's a few people who come into the world innately evil because like their brain chemistry is weird. They're called psychopaths. Okay. But it's like most people like exhibit violence or exhibit drug use or exhibit all these things that we see as negative or criminal because of trauma.
Yeah, it's the other thing too, though. Like, I think there's this stigma where a lot of people need to have a thing to like, kind of like look down on, to feel like there's someone who's like lower on the pole than them.
Oh yeah,
it's why people fight against the minimum wage so much. I will say.
Do we have time to talk about it? Because I'll tell you what, it's making my head explode.
What's interesting is like there's a lot of evidence that increasing the minimum wage for a lot of jobs basically eliminates them.
Wait. Say that again.
So like when they increase minimum wage, so I have very mixed feelings about minimum wage. I don't have mixed feelings about the ethics of paying someone $7 an hour. I think that's pretty fucked up. But I do have mixed feelings about the government forcing minimum wage because ultimately all I care about is like what's going to be the best in the long run for everybody, or not everybody, but for like the majority of common people. I don't, not the elites, fuck them. So like the libertarian side is very opposed to minimum wage, but they're opposed to all government intervention for the most part.
Right. Which I'll tell you what, the more I've learned from you, really what I think is the Libertarian Party, they've just had really bad PR. And I'll tell you what, because it's true, I think that it's always been like weird dudes that are in basements, you know what I mean? And like women who wear weird long skirts. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like kind of look like kindergarten reading teachers. And so bad PR. you know? Like nobody's gotten jazzed about the Libertarian Party.
Yeah, you know why they have terrible PR? Because the fucking corporate media is controlled by.
Okay. Whoa. Sorry, Gettlin. I'm just doing some goofs here, But I think there are a lot of properties that if you join me, Rachel LaForce, in the No Bullshit Party, that I would bring a lot of those things in. I mean, we have created this government, and it's interesting because something you said earlier, something where you were like, you know, now it's hard to find. Oh, something where you're like, now it's hard to find objective truth. And I was like, but even when we watched John Adams, fun plug
on HBO, Paul Giamatti, he was great,
pretty good. Laura Linney crushed it. And seeing the difference of opinion between Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, like even then, three basic white dudes all had varying opinions about what was best. Well, so that's the other thing I think is very not dangerous because that's hyperbolic, but I think something that again, this goes into people don't want to see the world and people as multifaceted, but something that's important for us to remember is there are a lot of different ways to solve a problem. It's just what is somebody's either personality or background or whatever of what they think the best quote unquote way to solve it is.
So what I was saying was there's a lot of evidence that when you increase the minimum wage, it basically ends up killing a lot of jobs because there's small operations that I guess can't afford to pay the minimum wage. So they just basically cut the job and scrape by, making best they can. Which there might be some truth to that, but the one that I definitely is absolutely true is that these even bigger companies, like your Walmarts, for example, it just pushes them faster to find ways to automate the job away so that a robot does it. Like, for example, right now McDonald's is rolling out a new drive-through system where you don't even talk to a person. It's just the same way you use like Alexa. They have their own like McDonald's created technology that they're beta testing, and they're hoping to have it like fully functional within like 2 years, where at least across the US and major markets, there's not even a person taking your order. It's just you say it pops up on the screen, you show there, and like, so it's just, we're going to automate all these jobs, which again, like working at McDonald's sucks. I mean, no disrespect if that's your dream, but, I don't think most people are going to be like, I can't have that sweet drive-through gig, but it does take away jobs from humans.
Right. Well, hopefully what I would like to see, because automation is not something I feel like at this point we can fight against, because again, we have created such greed in our country, and in the world, but specifically in our country, that of course, why would people want to take slightly less money in order to honor humans? You know what I mean? Like, again, I always say I'm not Democrat, I'm not Republican, I'm a humanitarian. To me, it's what is best for people, what is the best for all of us overall.
It's not just that. I mean, there definitely is a ton of truth to like your stereotypical greedy corporate CEO and board of a company. Like, we got to make our millions upon millions. But there is a lot of complication when you have a publicly traded company and their shareholders, and it's someone like our friend Randy who worked in finance can explain it better. He explained it to me very well. And the simplest like dumb person version I'm going to say right now is like, you have to if you don't keep making profits for your shareholders, you have like legal complications that
right. So that's also a major system that perhaps that we should look at. Sure. I mean, again, it's like if there's just like a group of shareholders that you're now indebted to, and it's like it matters to them, and then fuck everybody else that's actually working and building your company for you. To me, that's a major problem. But I'm also a person of solutions. So to me, I'm like, all right, you want to figure out how to make money. If you think this idea is so great, we can figure out how to make money without you abusing people. But people don't want that answer because it takes too much time. And it involves other people. And most people, once you've gotten to that place, I'm not going to say like everybody that's a shareholder or anybody that's like a CEO is, like a terrible person. I don't think that. I think people are very multifaceted. I think when people get to a certain place, there is a part of empathy. They haven't been involved with the real world in so long. It's like in the same way where, John Mulaney had this great bit about meeting Mick Jagger on SNL, and everybody was like, what was he like? And he was like Mick Jagger,
Yeah,
you know? He would just like walk around and then just randomly say like Diet Coke because he was so used to just saying something and then it appeared, you know?
Yeah.
They were like, well, was he down to earth? No, he's Mick Jagger. He's been one of the most famous people on the planet for years. He is nothing like you and me.
For like 50 years.
That's what I mean. So I just apply that same idea as like when you have had every gate open for you over and over and over again, I don't necessarily think that it means that you're a complete asshole and you don't care about other people. You haven't engaged with the world as it is in so long. You're operating literally from a different space.
Right.
And that's not me making excuses, but it's, you know, like how these systems and like the wagon wheel just goes over the same, you know, place in the dirt over and over and over and over again. And then it gets so hard to create a new track. But, you know, and the other part of the argument, you know, which I hear you, which is like, well, then smaller businesses can't afford to pay $15 an hour. I'm like, smaller businesses barely even exist. Do you want to know why? Because of Walmart and Amazon. Okay.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. I saw like a side-by-side. It was comparing like Costco to Walmart. And Costco pays their employees like infinitely more, not infinitely more, but like significantly more than Walmart.
Yeah, they make $16 an hour, which is like what you should make.
Well, no, the minimum wage at Costco is $15 an hour, I believe. And then the average pay for hourly at Costco was like $26 an hour. Whereas at Walmart, it was like way less than that. And then it just explained that like, yeah, and then also like the employees of Costco are way less of a drain on the social services. The thing that's really messed up is I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I've seen how like what percent of Walmart employees still rely on government assistance. And it's like if you're...
Oh, yeah, it was almost like 100%. I remember you were reading these to me.
If your minimum wage staff can't live on what you pay them, so they have to rely on tax-funded services, you shouldn't be allowed to pay them that little. But I get torn because I know if the government tries to come in and fix it, they're going to make it even worse. That's the thing that always happens.
Right, but I don't think our place in the world is to be concerned of like, you know, what... I feel like our place is to speak about these things and remind other people, because I also believe that like, I think there is a lot of justice in the world. I think that there's a lot of beauty, but I also think that like the human experience is unjust. It just is. I don't know why, you know, and even from a spiritual place of like, well, we all come here to like learn different things from our souls and evolve, and, you know, but it's still like, well, why the fuck's it got to be so hard? You know what I mean?
Because, you know, it's like that phrase, like weak times make weak men, or soft times make soft men, hard times make tough men, or something like that. Or people, we'll say. Let's use gender neutral. By the way, our friend Todd Verona says, hey guys, glad I was able to squeeze some Rachel and Alex on my Monday lunch break. Looking good. You may have to put Leo to sleep though. Thanks, Todd. Yeah, you know, I like this new time slot. I mean, I know it's a little different. We did the evenings, but I think I'm going to stick with the mornings.
I think it's good. I think this is our groove.
Well, I have one more thing I wanted to bring up that's of cultural significance, and I would love your thoughts.
Okay, but can we finish this? Yeah. We're going to run over an hour, and that's fine. Okay. I don't think anybody's going to come in here and be like, we're done. That'd be weird, though, if they did.
If the security at the Courtyard Marriott?
No, it was just like it was a podcast security guy. No, we already asked for a late checkout. So the idea of like things being unjust, etc. And what I think, this is more on a personal note and what I'm trying to figure out, and I just put it out there. So if anybody's listening and kind of mulling over the same thing or have thoughts about it, or maybe you've made it over this hurdle, please share with me how you got to the other side, which is, you know, like there's a lot of spiritual teachers and people that are like, just don't watch the news because it's all like of like earthly stuff and it's bullshit, right? Which I'm totally here for that. I also teach awareness and teach emotional intelligence and teach the idea of like when we all win, you know, if some of us win, we all win kind of thing. Like that's a lot of what the No Bullshit Party is about. And so, but it's also teaching those things and showing those things and sharing those things through an earthly lens.
Yeah.
We don't, to me, just going, well, it's crazy, so I don't want to participate, doesn't teach anybody anything. It doesn't offer, you know, and I understand some people are like, well, I just want to save my energy. You know, like when you were showing me about the gold statue that CPAC had, and they're all standing around it. And I'm like, yeah, of Trump. And I'm just like, cool. So when he runs again, like, fuck all of y'all who didn't, who acquitted him.
Okay, so hold on.
Like, you asked for this.
So on that note, okay, so CPAC, which I don't really know I know it stands for the Conservative Political Action Conference or something like that. Yeah, I guess it's sort of like Comic-Con for Republican dorks.
Yes.
But my understanding is they do a straw poll vote where they kind of figure out who they're going to throw their weight behind for the next presidential election. And Trump overwhelmingly won. Like, it wasn't even close. The second in line was the governor of Florida. I think his name is Rick DeSantis. But so it just was interesting because I kind of had this, I was very naive thinking, I didn't like Trump or Biden. I still don't. But I figured, hey, if Biden wins, it'll calm everything down a bit. We can move on from this chaotic, like, you're on that side, you're on this side, and just kind of breathe a sigh of relief. And that is definitely not happening because Trump is coming back full swing for 2024.
Well, the other reason why I think, I don't even want to say the majority because I don't know, but a lot of the conservatives that we are seeing are backing him again is he will do their bidding.
Yeah.
That's what people have to remember. That, like, in the same way, there's that meme I saw this week where it was like, it was two fighter jets, and one said Republicans, and it was dropping bombs, and then the other one said Democrats, but it just had like a Black Lives Matter flag and then like a pride flag on the back, but it's also dropping bombs,
right.
Which is so significant because that's what I said, all through. Where obviously I would rather have Biden win, just so I don't have to. I don't want to go there, but I would rather have Biden win. But people are totally high if they think that Democrats don't appeal to progressives in the same way that the Republican Party appeals to conservatives. But I'm just saying where it's like, where my anger comes in as somebody who was raised in a Christian home and I was taught all of these values, and then to see certain folks in my family oblige Trump as though it's no big deal. I'm like, wait a minute. Talk about something's out of alignment. Okay. It makes me really angry because, for a myriad of reasons, but I think that, that's the main thing. And I don't even think it's that they like him. I think they will know he will unapologetically do their bidding because in some ways, which is an interesting way to look at Trump, is he's a prop.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know that he has a bunch of fans and people love him, et cetera. I've met a handful of them. But I think that's a very interesting way of looking at it, of like all of these people that are the powers that be are propping him up because he'll go out there like a circus animal and he'll dance and he'll sing and do whatever because he thinks all of the attention is for him. Well, and they're sitting back and being like, oh, yes,
That's true, but he also has exponentially more influence than anyone else in the party. Like, the voter base still, this is what I'm concerned about. I'm saying this now because I think it's important we talk about it and become aware of it, is that there are a large portion of people in this country, and we're friends with some of them, who really hold on to this mindset that, like, if you in any way support or like Donald Trump, you're basically a member of the Nazi Party. And my fear is that, like, we're going to see an uptick in, like, when we get to 2024 or closer to it, really by 2022, and it's like, oh, Trump actually is running again, and there's going to be even more panic. Like, no, you can't let him back in. And it's going to get really ugly between the, like, people who, have the Trump flags and proud Trumpers, and then the antis, and then it's going to be even more of that, like, it's you're with us or against, or you're either with us or you're the enemy type thing.
Probably.
And it's just,
But it's also, but again, that's why I just want to remind people that Trump is not here to save you. And the Democrats are not going to save you. And that all of it really is an illusion. And so it's like choosing, and that's not a woo-woo thing to say, that's true. So when you find yourself getting that, when you feel that activation about, like, they're not on my team, or they're like, feel that feeling and sit with it for a second and remind yourself that like you're now choosing that feeling, because for whatever reason, we're all on this planet at this period in time where we are literally watching a circus show. That's what we're watching. That's what we have built from years and years and years of being complacent, from years and years and years of, you know, like being distracted, having all these other things going on. And for the first time, for whatever reason, all of like, you know, every closet in our house has been opened and all the shit that we kept piling up is now laying out in the middle of the floor. And, you know, Trump's not your guy, dog. Like, I'm sorry, he's not your guy, and Biden isn't either. And, you know, and most likely neither is Kamala. And so, you know, what I really want to encourage people to do again is like, why do you believe the things that you believe? Why do you get so riled up when you read something that's in opposition of your point of view? Why do you know, it's like, have a thought about it before you're just blindly in the street yielding a machete for somebody who's not even voting in your interest.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just going to be interesting to see how this pans out. Well, especially because he doesn't have access to Twitter and that stuff anymore. And then what, you know, like he gave this big speech at CPAC. He was like the closing speaker of the event. And what? I
was just like, I could only imagine how hollow, yet how many like euphemisms or just like catchphrases were used through the whole thing.
But dude, 70 million people voted for this guy.
I know.
74 million voted for Biden. Also, who knows how many even actually voted for either of these people? You know what I mean? Like, that's the other thing that really is like, I've gotten to the point now with like, back to the people who try to claim like we have to control the narrative for safety. Listen, I was never and still am not one of these people like all these illegal votes happened and it was stolen. I don't have that attitude, but I do get suspicious when like anyone even brings it up and their channels get banned or taken down. Like there's like prominent people on the internet who've been like doing and like different people in the podcasting and YouTube sphere who've done like their own like investigations into voter fraud, and their channels get like flagged and pulled down immediately. And it's like, well, now I'm suspicious. Like you wouldn't let me just like see what they had to offer. Like you like, no, we don't, you don't know enough, random guy consumer. We have to protect you from the information. It's like, dude, get that fuck out of here.
Well, that's why 70 million people voted for Trump, because people who are not of like mind or are not progressives, right? Let's say they're socially conservative, have a thought about it, but to each their own. You know, why they get so angry at elites or at progressives is it's like they think they're all bullshit liars and that they're just as evil and awful.
A lot of the ones in power are.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So again, if we went to this narrative of going, hey, so it turns out we've all been doing the human thing for a couple of years now. We still don't really know how to do it. So here's what we're going to do, okay? Like, that's the thing where it's like, of course, nobody's telling the truth.
Yeah.
Biden, you also lied through your fucking fake teeth, bro. And now we're all back in this scenario. And you want to know what? Bombing Syria right out the bat when you didn't go after minimum wage, you didn't send out, stimulus checks, all of the things that you just
why are we bombing Syria? They're a sovereign country. They didn't do anything to us.
I can't even go there. Just railed against the Republican Party being like, we're going to be the ones to fix it, and then you don't fix it, and then you bomb Syria first. Bye-bye to the 2024 re-election. Like, what? I mean,
dude, bye-bye to the 2022 midterms.
Dude, who in the world was in your cabinet? You know what I mean? I would have been, if they were like, this is what we're going to do, I would have been like, I'm going to get naked right now just to get your attention for everybody here in the room, okay? Because I want to remind everybody, hello, we're literally up against going back against Trump. Every single choice we make will forever, any single thing that anybody does in this room, everybody's coming for you. So you want to know what? You want to work on this team right now? You're going to have to cross every T and you're going to have to dot every I. That's too much for you? That's fine. That's where the door is. But the only chance we have of creating any sort of like normalcy or getting anybody back that's like super on Trump's side is simply to tell the truth and show up exactly who we are.
Yeah.
And they didn't. Because of course they didn't. Because they also think that they're invincible.
I want to let you finish us out here because I know we're over an hour. That's
I'm done now.
It's like an hour 30. But you had one thing you really wanted to talk about this episode.
Well, it's just going back into that idea of like accountability versus cancel culture and versus policing, because it's a real slippery slope and I'm seeing it pop up all the time. And, you know, like, so you were talking about that with, who was the gal that's now working for my buddy Ben Shapiro? I'm just kidding. We're not friends.
Gina Carano.
Yes. But Ben would be happy to come on your podcast and go toe to toe with you, my friend.
I don't think you would enjoy that. He's really, I know that you guys have fundamentally different views on stuff, but he's like incredibly skilled at debating and, anyway, I know you were kidding.
Yeah, that's fine. Hey, no, I'm not kidding. I will absolutely open that up. And if you don't think I'm good at debating, I don't know what to tell you. Because I'm not debating from your facts and your figures, Ben. Anyway, I'm not at all triggered by Ben Shapiro.
I like Ben. I mean, he's kind of a dork, but he's pretty smart.
Yeah, of course. I'm not taking that away from him by any means. I'm just simply saying he and I, it's not about our views are different. We're literally looking at the world from different places. To him, it's facts and figures, and that's what he debates from. To me, I'm like, you can tell me whatever your facts and figures are. I'm going to tell you this is what the world looks like right now. And the reason we've gotten there is because of podcasts like this that only talk about facts and figures and aren't talking about people and their feelings and their emotions and society. So we're literally coming at something from two different points of view.
Yeah, there's too much to say in response, so just keep going with the thing you wanted to close out on.
Okay. No, now I want to hear what you have to say.
Just that I get what you're saying, but I would argue that all sides have been manipulating people's emotions and fears since the beginning of time.
I'm not coming in being like, I'm a Democrat, Ben. That's not what I'm saying.
So what is this absurd scenario where you...
It's not absurd. This is manifesting in real life, okay?
Sure.
And who knows, maybe Ben and I would become buddies. You never know.
You know what's interesting? I've just found myself, I used to be like, I'm a liberal. And now I've found myself that I'm not a liberal or a conservative, but less things on the forefront of the conservative platform give me concern the same way. And again, you know me, I'm really of the mind now of like as minimal government intervention as possible. But like just certain things about that have become it's like weird to me that like puberty blockers for children who may be trans identifying, right? One, it's weird that that's become such a big piece of the narrative right now because it's like such a small portion of people that I would think affects. But also weird that like I don't feel like I see this the same way on the right-wing side, but the people who are the most ardent like trans rights advocates who support that stuff, if someone like me is like, listen, I want everyone to be able to live their own truth and have their identity and be treated with respect, etc. But yeah, I've got fundamentally serious issues with encouraging or allowing teenagers or even younger to have hormone blockers. The response, it feels, is rarely like, well, let me educate you why that actually is what we should be doing. And it's definitely like, because you're transphobic and you hate trans people and you're privileged. It's like, what response do you expect from someone like me when I hear that?
Yeah, I agree. I think, again, you have to remember people have triggered responses because of triggered behavior.
Yeah.
So when people have been oppressed for generations and generations, you're not even just talking to the person who feels persecuted in this life. You're talking to all of the people before them that's felt persecuted, to all, it's like, think about the things, even the small things of you, if people really tried to question them, how much it would ignite in you.
But I don't even mean that as much. It's like, why is the trans thing such a huge conversation piece? It's
a conversation piece because it's political and it's something that people can divide each other on. Rather than going, there's a very, very small percentage of children who, in order to get hormone blockers, have been through very strenuous psychological testing and things like that. You can't just walk in with your kid to a doctor's office and go, "Oh, my son now wants to be a daughter wants to be a girl."
No, but I forget her name, but the person who was one of Biden's people, and I wish I had the exact terminology, who's in charge of this, was born biologically as a male, now identifies as female. Her name is Rachel something. She is advocating for that that should be the case, that children should be allowed, like their logic, she was making this speech like, well, you don't make someone get like a psych eval if they need a nose job, so it's not fair to trans people to make them yada yada. It's like, yeah, you also don't let a 9-year-old get a nose job unless there's like a, you know.
Yeah, I understand that, and it's something that I haven't had enough experience with. I mean, I have a cousin who has transitioned from male to female. I guess technically 2, Cameron as well. So we have 2.
Cameron transitioned from female to male.
Yeah, and so from Phoebe to Cameron.
Correct. I don't think you're supposed to say their.
Yeah, I just realized that. I don't think I'm supposed to share that. And so again, this is the thing that like I'm still learning. I don't have a lot of experience with, and because of that, but that's even the perfect example of like, to me, there should always be somebody who's advocating for people that are of marginal groups, I think. But I also think it's very clear that this is something that is still so nuanced and new that we don't even know. Like, I would say I'm like incredibly progressive and spiritual and all of those things. And like, there is still like even that of like, you know, some people are fine. I know the term is dead name. And so it's like, you know, some people are fine with sharing that information. Some people aren't, like, and then you're going into people's boundaries. Like, you know, before you could ask somebody who's not of like mind to even understand the concept of a 10-year-old knowing in their soul that they were born in the wrong body, like you're not going to get anywhere without like so much education. But you know, the number one thing we know that changes people's minds is experience. People can hate gay people until somebody they really love is gay. And suddenly they have, even if they've disowned them, you can't tell me, I mean, that person is now radically changed because it's been in their experience.
Right.
Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But I just mean to share, Ben Shapiro, I'll come on your podcast. What else? No, so just on this idea of accountability and policing, which happens, I would say, much more on the progressive side.
Sure.
And, you know, it's like the woke wars, right? Like everybody. So, for instance, right now, what I noticed this week, so I think his name is Dr. Will Cole. And he's like a dietitian and a doctor and a nutritionist. And I don't think we use the word dietitian anymore because it's negative because it has the word diet in it. I think now it's like nutritionist or holistic, whatever. And so he wrote a book called Intuitive Fasting. Now, here's where, Dr. Cole, you didn't really think this through, okay? He released this book during Eating Disorder Awareness Week, okay? Okay?
Okay.
So during Eating Disorder Awareness Week, he drops a book called Intuitive Fasting. Not the week to drop a book about anything related to bodies, okay? Especially not as a white male. Do you drop a book?
How many different weeks get an awareness dedicated to them?
There's a lot of them. And I'll tell you, for all the things we're supposed to be aware about, people still don't really know what's going on.
What week is Eating Disorder Awareness Week?
This was like a last week.
Okay.
And so,
like, I wonder if they're like, hey, don't forget to spay and neuter your pets week.
Probably. If not, there's maybe just a day.
Yeah. Anyway, keep going.
And so now the other problem was, you know, do you know who did the foreword in his book? She's one of our favorites. Gwyneth Paltrow. So
burn this book. Burn this
book.
Again,
that was a lot of it as well, of like, okay, so you drop this intuitive fasting book
Paltrow. I mean, God, she just
on Eating Disorder Awareness Week, or during Eating Disorder Awareness Week. And then you have Gwyneth Paltrow, who has come under so much fire for, you know, everything that she's
an easy punching bag. I should be nice.
Has done for, you know, the wellness community. And so people went after him this week about people that didn't even read the book. So they just saw Gwyneth, they saw the book, and they're like, this is toxic. This is disruptive, like how dare you, like all body positivity, all of these things, right? And I was overwhelmed by it because, you know, I'm still adjusting and learning to love my body. I'm still adjusting of like, oh, when I look at a woman and I'm like, oh, and I judge her, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I actually believe that as much as like, that's what I've been told. So I decide what she looks like based off of what I've been told is standard, right? So I'm still working through all of that. I think it's called internal misogyny. So I'm still working to kind of destructure all of that for myself. And I'm a woman, so I've obviously participated in disordered eating at many times in my life. I don't know of anybody who hasn't. But not enough that I felt it was my time to share the conversation this week. Okay. So all these people go after him. People are like, I guess there was this whole underground movement that everybody was giving it like 1-star reviews on Amazon and all this stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
So Dr. Cole claps back and he was like, for those of you that didn't even read this, there's a part in the book where I talk all about if you have suffered from an eating disorder, like here are the different ways. And so he does acknowledge it. And so then there were all these people then coming out and apologizing to him. And there was like this whole thing, which I'm like, gosh, it's so weird, the different like worlds that exist on social media. Because if you're a part of this world, like it was this huge, huge thing. And then
that's what's so interesting to me too, is that we were somewhere and somebody was saying that there's like 40 million Instagram accounts with at least 1 million followers. Were you with me when we learned?
Yes, that was our buddy Alex Hooper shared that with us.
Yeah, and it's like it just shows you how like that's back to our earlier point. It's like, who are these influencers, quote unquote, that the Minneapolis city government is trying, like, I don't know.
I don't know, but hit up Dr. Cole, because I think right now he's really into bad press. So anyway, then the whole point. But here's what was interesting.
Okay.
Was then there was another. There's this woman, Alyssa Vitti, who created this book called Flow Living. That's all about teaching women about their
period.
Their circadian rhythm, and that there's like 4 different weeks and how to like eat different like foods or exercise, et cetera, based off to basically heighten these different parts of your body. Because specifically when it comes to the majority, we know this about vaccines too, right? That women that are of childbearing age are the least studied on. So all of these things we know about fasting and how it works or it doesn't work, all of those facts and figures that people like Dr. Cole offer are not actually based on the majority of women. So they're done on postmenopausal women. Yeah. And then, and men.
You know who else loves facts and figures? Your boy, Ben Shapiro.
Okay, I can tell that I've lost you.
No, it's very interesting. But what's honestly the most interesting thing to me about that whole thing you mentioned was, and this has happened so many times, is this ridiculous, army that made like a 1-star review campaign, and they weren't even informed on him or the book and really what it bums me out about. And I try to catch myself, make sure I don't do this to other folks. But now it's so easy. Like, to me, the really easy, lazy example is when people love to say that, like, Joe Rogan is alt-right or racist or whatever, transphobic. And they'll take, like, one sentence of a comedy podcast he did with another comedian, and they're, like, saying something irreverent, being comics.
Right.
And then people... And I'm not like, I love Joe, he's my hero. I'm not saying that nonsense. But how people who are just... anti whatever the joke is, love to just use this like soundbite and be like, this person is evil. And like, you don't know you haven't even taken the time to like educate yourself on what, so we just do that with so many folks now. We just, like, we were watching, keep referencing John Adams, right? We were tarring and feathering people back in the day for being the tax collector for the king because we hated them. And it's like, yeah, we just like socially tar and feather people. I mean, my buddy Steve, who, he's a police officer, and he has a podcast where he interviews different police and talks about stuff with cops. And it's a really good podcast. I really enjoy it. But what's interesting, when it came out, this is years ago, when it first came out, there were like a couple comics who like specifically went and gave it a 1-star review because they just didn't like that he was doing a police podcast. And it's like, well, how gross are you? Like, just because he's a cop and he's interviewing cops that you just have to shit on it?
Well, to me, again, it doesn't show wokeness. It shows the same lack of ignorance that you are hurling at conservatives or alt-right, of saying that they're ignorant or they're dumb I know I did call them dumb earlier in the podcast, but I stick by that. Only in that one reference. But, where Well, aren't you just the same? You didn't even read the book. You didn't know anything about the book. You saw Gwyneth Paltrow holding up a book about something that you didn't agree with. Now, I understand if your initial instinct was to put it up and go, haven't done enough research about this yet. Seems very unsettling that this would be, dropped during Eating Disorder Awareness Week, right? I think that to me is accountability. To hold Dr. Cole accountable or to say, hey, it seemed, as somebody who struggled with eating disorders, it felt very disrespectful to drop a book such as this about something that we already know is fairly controversial during this week. It feels slightly disrespectful. I just wanted to bring to your attention that perhaps you could have done something different.
Sure.
To me, that's accountability. That's sharing with somebody like, hey, what you did is relatively problematic and certainly can be seen that way. To me, that's accountability. To post it, especially if you're somebody who advocates for eating disorders, et cetera, to post it and go, hey, if this is something that you see or come across, I really just want to offer you a couple of other, resources, et cetera. If you're going into this journey, just something to be mindful of because, healthy eating, that's what I think it's called an orthorexia is the same thing of people that are obsessed with like healthy food eating and stuff like that.
There's a term for everything.
Yeah, well, because it's anything that's not balanced. The point being, it was just the perfect example for me this week of this police culture and like bulldog and, cancel culture of we don't like something before we even let somebody speak, we've destroyed it. And it's like...
Well, because it's so easy to shit on and destroy things compared to build it up.
Oh, certainly. I mean, it takes way more effort to be, and it also takes a lot of effort to be triggered by something and sit with it. It sucks. It sucks to have had, I'm sure, years of struggling with an eating disorder. It makes you question every single thing about your life. And then to have some white dude come out and be like, you know what? You can also fast if you just listen to your body. So maybe you weren't listening to your body and that's why you're sad. And then have Gwyneth Paltrow be like, and I wrote the foreword. Like, of course, that's triggering. Of course. But sit with it just for a second and think, how can I use this as potentially a teachable moment? What can I teach myself? What can I offer, my community, no matter how big or how small? That's accountability. But policing everybody and telling them what to do or canceling them or just being like, burn it all.
I don't think cancel culture is really a thing anymore. I think it is, but we don't really.
What do you mean? Not that long ago, we took Trump off Twitter.
Yeah.
There was the woman what was the idiot woman who wore the mask that said censored while talking on the floor of Congress?
I don't remember, but I just mean
hilarious.
The difference now is like cancel culture has just become to like generalize. It's like you're no longer on the left. Now you have to go to these like more niche right-leaning things. Does that make sense? Like remember when people wanted to cancel Land O'Lakes butter because it has an Indian on the thing,
right?
Or like, and then I don't know. Anyway, we're already at an hour 20.
I know. I can tell I lost you about 30 minutes ago. But guys, I appreciate you hanging in there.
Why do you always say that? Can you stop saying that you lost me? You didn't. I'm here. I'm in it.
I know.
It's actually very frustrating when you do that.
Well, I'm sorry. I just saw you. It's difficult sometimes where I really wanted to share something, and then I just kind of saw you go,
Okay.
Because
you never do that.
Oh, my God. Whoa. Trigger point. Are you okay? We're still recording. People are still watching. Are you all right? You want to talk about it? You done?
I'm good.
Want to get you some food?
Okay, enough. So this has been no, not house rules. This has been Common Ground.
Yes, we are here every Monday morning. Next week we'll be back in the studio. Mm-hmm. We will no longer be on the road.
Yeah, our studio ones are better. This is the
What do you mean? This was great.
Well, no, as Tucker pointed out, we look like we're in a dentist office waiting room.
That's a hilarious place to do a morning show.
Can you imagine?
Of course I can.
If we were both sitting in dental chairs, right, and we had a mic up to our mouth and then a GoPro.
Do you like going to the dentist?
No. Why would anybody like that?
I don't know. When I was a kid, I thought it was awesome. And now I think...
I peed my pants once at the dentist. I was little, when like we'll wrap on this story. I was really young. I forget how old, maybe like 5 or something. And, when you're really little, you don't understand that, like, if you got to go to the bathroom, you could just go. I was, like, waiting for an adult to come into the room to tell me I had, like, permission to go to the bathroom. And I was just sitting in the chair. Sometimes they leave you and they go do their thing, and no one came. And I was, like, too afraid to, like, get out of the chair and ask. So I just sat there and ended up peeing my pants.
Oh.
And I was really embarrassed because I was like, I didn't know. Like,
Oh.
I didn't, because I thought, when you're a kid, there's so many rules. I didn't want to get in trouble.
Oh my gosh, that is so endearing and also like such a good reminder that we have to tell Jonah, like there are times that you can
advocate for yourself, kid.
Yeah. If you have to go pee, don't pee in your pants like daddy. Oh, that's so sad. What'd your mom say?
I don't remember. You could ask her. I'm sure she'll remember this story.
All right, we'll ask. Guys, thank you so much for listening and tuning in. As always, if you have thoughts, feelings, opinions, of accountability, don't at me, you hate us. Find us. Please follow us, like us, subscribe. If you like this, tell a friend about it. Again, we're still in the phase of getting eyes on this thing, and we're having a lot of fun, and we're not going to stop till everybody knows our name. You know what I mean?
Amen.
I was about to start singing Journey.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Thanks, guys.
Okay, see you next week.
Goodbye.